Well, hello Internet, and welcome to part 11 of my After Effects tutorial series. In this part of the tutorial series, I'm going to show you how to make a ton of different animations using After Effects expression language. Everything you see here and a whole lot more, and I have a lot to do, so let's get into it. Alright, so now I'm going to show you how to make numerous different animations using the After Effects expression language. We're going to come in here, we're going to create a new composition. Everything works exactly the same on Windows as well as on Macintosh. We're going to make it HDTV 1080 2997 and then change this to 30 just like we always have. And let's take this up to 20 seconds. And let's change the background to be black. And OK. And OK. So there we have our little composition. I'm going to start off simple and I'm going to get progressively more complicated. And if you want to see more of these animations, leave a comment asking for more and I will make more. Let's start off very simple. I'm just going to get my rectangle tool and I'm going to go and give it a solid color and opacity 100. Okay. And I'm going to turn the stroke off right like that. And then let's come in and let's have our fill color be like a cyan blue so that it shows up pretty well on our black background. Okay. And then I'm just going to come in here and I'm just going to draw a little rectangle inside of this. Now I'm going to come up and I'm going to get our little anchor tool here and just make sure that our anchor tool is in the center of our rectangle, which it is. All right, so there it is. It is a little rectangle, not that complicated. Now what we're going to be able to do here is we're going to be able to come in and do animations using code, which is going to really help us eliminate the need to use tons of keyframes, which can become rather confusing. Now to open up the option to use expression code, you're just going to hold down either Alt or Option, and in this situation, click on Rotation. And you can see right here, transform, rotation shows up. So let's say that we would like to rotate this rectangle 360 degrees every 1 second. Very simple. So I'm just going to come in here and I'm just going to type in time, which is the representation of time on our composition or for our composition, and times 360. Right like that. Just wrote that little bit of code. Don't even need to put a semicolon there, but I can if I'd like. And then what you're going to do is just click outside of this area. And now if you go and just hit play, you can see it just plays on its own. It's rotating 360 degrees every 1 second. Now remember, this is simple. We're going to get more complicated as you saw in the beginning of the video. Now let's come in here to a little bit more specifics. You're going to be able to enable and disable your expression code just by clicking on this little guy here. You can click here, and this is going to show the post expression graph, which shows a graph of the animation. And that is if you open up your graph editor, which is right here. And you can see it's just a flat 360 degree rotation, nothing that complicated, but it gets more complicated later. We can just shut that off. And Pick Whip is going to allow you to go and change values based off the values of other objects. We'll be using that a lot. And then if you click on this little play button here, you're going to see all of these different expression tools. So we have the ability to get absolute value, to round, and we're going to be using a lot of these in this tutorial. Global is going to have things like your ability to target your composition, your project time, which I already told you is the composition's time. Property is another one you're going to use a lot. It's going to allow you to define wiggling and looping and a whole bunch of other different things. All right, so let's just keep adding to this complexity. Now let's say we would like to go and have a little circle that is going to rotate around this rectangle. All right, just come up here, go and get our ellipse tool. Come in here and let's just draw a ellipse. Okay, and this guy is going to allow us, well, first we're going to make sure that our anchor point in this situation, we want to rotate around the rectangle. So we're going to drag this over here and put it right in the middle of our rectangle. And I'm going to make it here so that it's lined up well with that. And then I'm going to hit Y so I can go and change to my little anchor tool. And right there in the center. Okay, so what I want to do now is have the circle rotate around the rectangle. And let's say that we specifically want to have it rotate 90 degrees every 1 second. How do we do that? Well, here is our new orbiting circle. I'm going to go into transform. I'm again going to either hit Alt or Option and rotate. And I'm going to type time times 90 like this. And you can see now that the circle is rotating around the rectangle and they are both rotating at different speeds. All right. So that is as simple as it gets. So now let's take it up another notch. Let's say that I would want to create a clock with moving hands. And specifically, I'm just going to have the minute hand and the second hand. So I'm going to come into my ellipse tool, and I'm just going to draw a circle down here. I'm then going to go to my rectangle tool, and I am going to draw what is going to be a pretty thick type of thing. Well, I'm going to hit Y to get the anchor for this guy. And let's put this down around here. I'm going to also change the color of this. So let's come in and change our fill color, and let's just make it white so that it shows up really well. Click on OK. Y, our anchor tool there. V, so that we can shrink this down. And then let's come in and drag it into the center, roughly, of our circle. And I'm going to resize it down here and resize it. Okay, so there is this is going to be our minute hand. And I can come in here just to differentiate this from everything else. And I am going to call this min hand like that. And let's go and get our anchor point and put it right in the center of that circle. Now what I want to do is go and draw another rectangle inside of here, but this is going to be a thinner type of rectangle. I'm going to go V, drag this in here. Maybe we want to rotate this so that it goes sideways like this. And there is the center, the same as before. Made it a little bit thinner. And then I'm going to come down here and I'm going to call this second hand. Right like that. And just make sure that its anchor point is also in the center of our little clock here. Now, if I want the minute hand to go and take a minute to go the whole way around the circle, which makes sense, I'm going to say transform. I'm going to go Alt or Option, rotation. And then inside of here, I'm going to say time times 6. And that is going to take 1 minute to go around. And for our seconds, if I want it to go 360 in 1 second, well, very simple. Alt, Option, rotation. It's exactly what I did before. So it's going to be time times 360. All right. And click outside of this, play it, and you can see that the clock is rotating exactly like we did or like we wanted it to do. And it's not perfectly neat, but I'm just trying to be fast so I can do as much as humanly possible. Now what I want to do is I want to have a ball bounce across the screen, and then I'm also going to show you how to go and display text about what the ball's X position is. So I'm going to come in and I'm going to draw a circle. Again, ellipse tool. And let's go and just draw an ellipse inside of here. Fill color, I can go, let's say I want to have it be the blue again, and OK. And it's a little bit big. So let's maybe shrink this down a little bit. All right, that's a pretty good size for our circle. And let's just come in and let's call this circle. And for this guy, what I want to do is I want to change the position on it and have it bounce up and down. And that is going to be on the Y. So I'm going to have an expression on just the Y. And then for the X, I want to just move it from left to right. But I only have one position that has X and Y in it in the same time. Well, you can actually split this up if you'd like to. You just right click on position and go separate dimensions, and boom, now you have an X position and a Y position for your circle, which is extremely useful. And then I can go Alt Option on my Y position. And then inside of here, I can define that I want this ball to bounce. So I'm going to say bounce height, and I'm going to say, let's say like 200 pixels. And this represents the height of the total bounce animation. I'm then going to say T is equal to math and absolute value and time times 2, again, time, composition, time in seconds. And what I want to do here is generate values from 1 to 0 that are then going to back to 1 and then back to 0. So it's going to fluctuate up and down over and over again. So to do that, I can then get the modulus, or the remainder of that division, minus 1. Then I'm going to say t is equal to, and I'm going to go and get linear from this. So I'll just click on this guy right here. I'm going to go to interpolation and linear. And I'm actually going to want this guy right here. So click on that. We're going to take this fluctuating 0 to 1 and 1 to 0 value that is right here, plug it inside right there. Then what we're going to do is we're going to say that if we get a value of 0.9, we want to return a value down inside of here of 0. And if we get 0, we want to return a value right here of 1. And then what linear is going to do is we're defining our minimums and our maximums. And what linear is going to do from that point on is go and find all the averages. And the reason I didn't make this 1 instead of 0.9 is I'm going to have it pause for a second whenever it hits the ground to make it look a little bit more like a normal bounce. Now what it can do is value minus the bounce height times t, and that is going to give us basically the bounce height is going to be the maximum of 200, and then this is going to give us values between 0 and 1. So it's going to give me different percentages for our maximum height of 200. All right, and then if we play it, you're going to see that our ball bounces up and down real nice and neat. And let's go back to the beginning right here, and let's bring this down a little bit so that I have more room for my animations. There, that's really good. Now what I want to do is I want to come into the X position part and have that just work like a normal type of keyframe. And I also noticed that the anchor point here is off a little bit. So let's go like this, and Y, and let's drag it into the center. All right, and play it, and yes, it's bouncing real nice. All right, so good stuff. Now for our X position, I'm just going to create a keyframe for it. So click on the little stopwatch inside of there at the 0 mark. And then I'm going to drag it over here to say like around 4 seconds. And then I'm going to go and drag my ball across the screen. So roughly in this area right here. All right, so good stuff. So sometimes you're still going to use keyframes, and you can see there is the ball bouncing exactly like we would like. But then it gets to the end of the 4 seconds and it just goes up and down. So that's not good. So what we can do is loop the X position. So let's just come in here to our X position. And what I want to do is loop it. So I'm going to click on this guy right here. And I'm going to go to Property. And I'm specifically going to use Loop Out right here. There it is. There's our Loop Out. And with Cycle, what it's going to do is it's going to play the first keyframe after the last keyframe is done running. So let's just run it, and you can see exactly what that looks like. So let's just come out of here like this. Okay, so if we go and we start playing it, it's going to go for 4 seconds, and it's going to get to this point, and then it jumps back to the beginning. But that didn't really look very nice. So what I'd prefer to do is go and have it get to the end and then bounce back to the beginning. Can we do that? Yes, we can. So you see what Cycle does is it plays the animation, and then after it plays the animation, it jumps back to the beginning. However, if we come in here and we instead type in ping pong, it will actually do what we want. It will go from where it is back to the beginning. So it gets to the 4-second mark, and it stops right there, and then it bounces back. All right, so kind of a neat little animation effect. And the other options that are available to us, if we come in here and click on this and go into Property, we also have a Loop In property. And the way that this works is kind of like the opposite. If I had, let's not do this, but you see how I have my keyframes here at the very beginning of our animation? Well, if you ever have a situation in which your keyframes are at the end of your animation and you want to have the ones at the end of the animation play at the beginning of the animation, you use Loop In instead of Loop Out. All right, so that's just an example of another looping option you may need. And now what I want to do is show you how to display values based off of changing values inside of your different transform tools. And to do that, I'm just going to undo any of this, Click over here, and I'm going to draw some text inside of here. And let's go and, well, I'm just going to put a number in. So I'm going to say 200. I don't know what it's going to be. And let's go and see what the position for the ball is whenever it's right here. So at that point in time, the X position's 121. All right. So let's come in and we'll say 121 right there. And maybe we want to resize this a little bit because it's kind of a mess. All right. So there you go. And that's resized pretty well. So what this text is going to do is it's going to show the X value for our ball as it bounces across the screen. I'm going to go Y, get our little anchor tool, put it right in the center of our number, V again. And to go and define what number is going to show up inside of there with our text tools, we can just go into text and source text. We can go Alt and Option, source text right like this. And if I want to show the X position value inside of the source text like that, that's where I can use the pick whip. So I just drag this guy down here and drop it right there, and it's automatically going to display whatever the value is for our X position for our ball. And you can see it has a decimal place at the end, however. So I don't really want that. So what I want to do is I want to come inside of here. I still want that value. So let's say we want to get rid of these decimal values inside of here. How can we do that? Well, we can come inside of here and just select anywhere inside of here. Come over here, click on this little play button, go to JavaScript Math, and let's say we want to get the ceiling. We want to round it up. You can round it based off of if this is 0.5, it's going to round it up. If it's less than 0.5, it's going to round it down. Ceiling is going to round everything up, and floor is going to round everything down. So I'm just going to pick on ceiling right here. And I'm going to go and grab this guy right here, all of it, cut that, select the value inside of here, paste that inside, boom, 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 deselect everything, play it, and now you're going to see that it is showing the changing X position for our bouncing ball. All right, so cool. Let's say that we want this number to follow the bouncing ball. How can we do that? Well, we're just going to use our pick whip again. So here is our text. We're going to go transform like this. And we're going to go and say position. We're going to right click on this. We're going to separate the dimensions. And we're just going to go and select our X position. And we're going to pick whip it down so that it is going to match up. And you can resize this, of course. So let's go down, resize that. This is the X position we want. This is the X position we want to follow that. Drag it down to X position. Boom, like that. And run it. And now you can see that the value is following the bouncing ball as it displays the value for our X position. So all neat stuff. Let's say we want to go and demonstrate the way a pendulum works. How could we do that? Well, let's go and close all this stuff right here. And I am going to come in and create a circle. And that is going to be called a bob, which is what they call the end of a pendulum. So there that is. And I am going to come in and right click this and just say bob. I'm going to create another circle after that. And I am going to call it pivot. I'm going to deselect everything over here. And I'm going to draw another circle right like this. Make it smaller than before. There it is. Let's go out of here. And we are going to call it pivot. So select this, go like this, and pivot. And then I'm going to go and draw in a rectangle. And maybe we want to resize this a little bit so that bob is bigger than pivot. There we are. That's better. Okay, so now we're going to deselect everything. Come in to our rectangle tool. And let's say we want to draw a rectangle that is going to go down like this into the center of this area right here. And let's say that we want the fill on that to be white so that it stands out a little bit. There it goes. And let's go and put it in the center of our bob and our pivot. We could also go and select all three of these guys like this and come into align and align them so that they are aligned with each other the way that we would like. And we want the little cord here, or in this situation, let's call that rod, to be behind the pivot and the bob. So just drag it down here, right like that. And now it is where we would like it to be. Let's go and select our rod and click on Y to go and get our anchor up here inside of this, which is our pivot point. and I'm going to go V, and I'm going to select this guy right here, and I'm going to go Y, and again, get its anchor, and also put that in the center up here, where pivot is. And now what I want to do is have the pendulum go from left to right, and then have the rod follow it. So I'm going to go specifically into bob right here, and rotation, and I'm just going to go to the 1 second mark right here, and I'm going to set a keyframe for it. So, and then let's go and let's take the rotation for bob, maybe up to 45 degrees. So you can see 45 degrees right there. And then let's go to 1 second, and let's take bob's rotation to -45. So -45 like this. So there's bob, and it's bouncing into that, but don't worry about it. I'll fix it later. Now what we can do for rod is just bind that together and loop it, and we have a looping pendulum. So let's just go to rod right here, and here is rod's rotation. We can go and get our pick whip, drag it up to this rotation like this, drag this back, and you can see they are working together, but it's getting there and it's stopping. So how do we go and loop it? No problem. We can just come in to our rotation. We can go Alt or Option on our rotation. Whoops, I want to do this on the bob rotation. Come in here, click on this guy, go to Properties, loop out like this, and then type in ping pong. Ping pong like that. Boom, got that fixed. And there we go, just like that, we were able to create a pendulum. And then we can, of course, come in and select both of them, or all three of them actually. And let's go and move them over. And let's go and move them over so that they don't bounce into each other. And let's make sure that these balls, oh, actually, it looks like the pendulum knocks the balls back. So that's kind of a neat effect that I accidentally created there, okay? So cool stuff. Boom, that's neat. Now I'm going to show you how to display a timer. So deselect everything here, come into the text area, click up inside of here, and I'm going to go 00:00 and get the selection tool. And let's put this down inside here a little bit. And I'm going to show you how to do a whole bunch of different things with the expression language. So I'm going to go into the text area right here and source text. So Alt Option like that. And I'm going to go and change, basically I'm just going to display the time that you normally see here in your timestamp directly inside of the composition. Don't worry about the fact that there's nothing there right now. Something will be there very soon. So what I want to do is I want to go and get the current time that we have for our composition. I'm just going to call it current time is equal to time, like that. And if I want to go and get the number of seconds, that is going to require math floor. You can use this guy to get math floor if you'd like, JavaScript math and math floor, but I just don't do that. I normally just type the code in because I think that's easier. And to get the number of seconds, you go and get your current time and the modulus of 60 for seconds. And if you want to get milliseconds, equal to current time and 2. If I only want to get 2 decimal places, I type 2 fixed. 2, that gives me 2 decimal places. And if I want to get the last 2 values inside of that result, I go -2. -1 would give me the very last one. -2 gives me the last and the next to the last and the last. All right, so that's milliseconds. But I have a problem here because sometimes these are going to be single digits, and I want to display them as 00 with padding and so forth and so on. Well, with the expression language, you can actually come in and write functions. So I'm going to write a function that is going to pad in an additional 0 if I'd like to. And you're just going to type in function like this. I'm going to call this pad number. And what it's going to receive is a number, and which is going to be seconds or milliseconds, and the desired length that you would like for that number. I'm going to have to check to verify that they sent me a string, because if they didn't, I need to convert it into a string. So to do that, you just say, hey, is that number you sent me? And you type in instance of, which is the same as saying, is it a string? And if it is, I'm just going to leave it as what it is. And if it's not, I want to convert it into a string, right, like this. and it takes the value and just turns it into a string representation. Then what I want to do is I want to continue to add zeros until I have two values, or the number length. It's going to be 2 in this situation. So I'm going to say, as long as the number length is less than the desired length with the padding values, I am going to continue adding a 0 string in front of it. All right? So like this, plus num, plus num, like that. Whoops, get that quote out of there. Num, there we go. And now we are going to have padding with our values. Then after it does this, I just go and return the number string and then throw a semicolon at the end. So there is the finished code if you want to pause your screen and take a look at it. All right, so there it is. Go back to the beginning. Whoops. Go back to the end here. And now I will return our finished number. So I'm going to say pad number like this. And I'm going to pass in my seconds. And I'm going to then follow that up with a colon like this. And plus and milliseconds like that. And now we can go in here and it's going to display exactly the same timestamp code that is inside of our timestamp right here. All right, so just another neat little thing that we can do. All right, so now I'm going to show you how the wiggle expression works. And basically, the wiggle expression is going to allow you to generate random movements, random opacity, random all sorts of stuff. So let's just go and make some like twinkle stars, something like that. So I went and drew a star inside of here, and I am going to name it star. So just, whoops, star. There we go, and there is star. And now what I want to do is just make a whole bunch of duplicates of star. So either Command or Control D, your stars. So there's 5 stars. And then I'm just going to randomly just throw them around here on the screen. All right, so there's their stars. Now what I want to do is I'm going to show you how to copy an expression from one object to another object. But first I'm going to show you how to change the opacity in a random way. So we're going to go to our first star and transform and opacity. Option Alt, open up the opacity filter, and we're going to type in wiggle. And of course it is in here under this play button here. And I'm going to say, first thing I'm going to set here is what is called the frequency. And what it is a reference to is how often do you want a value to change per second. So I'm going to say 4 times I want to change the opacity of this star per second. Now the second number here is going to be a reference to amplitude, which is how much my opacity in this situation is going to change. And the 100 means that it's going to go from negative 50 to positive 50. So 100, there it is. That's all I need to do with it. And we can go outside of here and then play it and get a sample of what this animation is going to look like. So you can see it's sort of twinkling. All right, so twinkling stars. All right, let's also change the position using wiggle. So Alt Option Position. And I'm going to set here the wiggle to 4 times, and let's change the position by 10 so it doesn't move all over the place like crazy. All right, so that's good. Okay, so how complicated is it to go, and you can see what it looks like. So the star's twinkling and jerking around slightly. Okay, so how complicated is it to copy all these expressions that are in star to all of the other ones? Well, I'm just going to click on T and then hold down Shift and P to get the position and the opacity. And I'm going to right-click on the opacity right here and go Copy Expression Only. And I'm going to select all of the stars. And I am going to, well, I can just select all of them and go Control or Command V. There I did, copied all the opacities. And the position, Copy Expression Only. Select all of my stars again, my extra stars anyway. And Command or Control V again. And just like that, I'm able to go and add the positions and the opacity changes to all of those stars. So really cool stuff. And let's go and show you one more animation. What I want to do this time is I created this, well actually I got this gauge from that free vector site, it's the link to this actual EPS file right here is in the description. And then, as I showed you previously, I went and selected the different parts I wanted to save, and I said collect a new layer for each of them, drug them to the top so that they were on their own layer. So I have the needle and the gauge on its own layer. And then I saved this as gauge.ai, so it's an Adobe Illustrator file. Now I'm going to bring it inside of here. How I'm going to do that, I'm going to right click, I'm going to go import file, and I'm going to get the gauge, and I'm going to go import as composition, retain layer sizes, create composition, and click on OK. So here is our gauge, and I'm going to double click on it to open it up right here. I'm going to grab the needle right here. Well, yeah, I'm going to grab it, and first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to rotate it so that it is straight up and down. So, or roughly straight up and down, so that looks about right. I'm going to go V to select it and move it right around here. Well, let's move it up a little bit. All right, so that looks about right. And I'm going to go Y so that I can go and move the anchor point on this as well. I'm going to hold down my Command or Control key so I can control the exact placement of the anchor, and that looks good. Go back to V for selection. I'm going to zoom in here so you can actually see what I'm doing. Now what I want to do is I'm going to right click here, and I'm also going to show you how to do something else. I'm going to show you how to work with expression controls. So let's go new, and if you actually made it this far, leave me a comment, because I'm guessing just about 99% of people didn't. Okay, so adjustment layer. So what's really cool about the adjustment layer here is I'm going to be able to put controls in the adjustment layer, such as how much I want this gauge to wiggle, and then I can go and control it directly inside of our effect panel, which is going to be right here, effect controls. That's where it's going to go. Okay, so I got my adjustment layer over here, and I'm going to go over here to effects and presets. I'm going to go to expression controls, and I'm going to go and just grab the slider control. So that guy right there, drag it over and drop it on my adjustment layer. So there it is. Okay, so that's good. I'm also going to come up here and I'm going to lock this so that it is going to stay locked in place, so that when I click on other things, nothing's going to change up inside of there. And I am going to come up here, and let's say I want to set this to 120. This is going to be the amount, the angle it's going to rotate the little needle inside of there. Then I'm going to go to needle, and I'm specifically going to look for rotation. So I'm going to hit R. I'm going to go Alt Option, click on rotation. And then inside of here, I'm going to say wiggle, and I'm going to say 4 times and per second. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my little pick whip to select the adjustment layer value. And it's giving me an error. Don't worry about that. It's going to go away. Slider control and slider. See, there's 120. And I can just come in here since I have my cursor right here. And I'm going to go pick whip, and I'm going to go right to the slider like that. Select outside of there. And I forgot an extra little parentheses here. So throw that inside of there, and that error should go away. Doop. All right, looks like it's working now. And we run our animation. You can see we get the jerky type of gauge look that we have right there. And of course, I can come up here and change the slider amount, and it's going to affect the amount that our little gauge is going to go crazy with. All right, so cool stuff. I can do the unlock now, and I can come back here, go back to our project. So there's project like that. I can open up our project. I can go and get my gauge. I can drop my gauge inside of here, and we can go and play around with all of the animations right here on our screen, doing all kinds of crazy things. And I think you guys can see from this video that you're going to be able to go and create all kinds of really cool animations using the expression language in After Effects. So like always, please leave your questions and comments down below. Otherwise, till next time.